So at the same moment the CEO again turned to the administrator, where he asked for the use of the administrator's authority. He added to the construction site, which is ignored against the phenomenon, a higher level of toxification status. Although the administrator's authority was used, as it was aimed against a contract player, this is an illegal change. So there was a warning that there would also be a penalty in this regard. He is currently under the administration of the administrator. 2 illegal dimensions were introduced, so we needed to keep in mind that in the case of applying additional illegal measures, in the settings, the application request may be rejected, but in my opinion it is not actually named. There was a background warning of the immediate application of penalties, a salary reduction fueled decisions of annual let's go and tips to the directors on the size of the point he would survive such a fine. All he raised was that the head and employees of Arcadia worked hard to run the game for a long time, so he wouldn't let one freak get his take full responsibility. So at the same time, a notification was displayed that the effectiveness of the poison mist was significantly increased, and it was now impossible to use any resistance skills. Our character, who looked at it with surprise, believed that there were changes again. He realized that now all the administrators were openly targeting him, so even the Thane who flew in the country understood that no matter how poisonous Azakar was, but a rare time at this level was simply impossible, so what could they do now? Of course, our main character also didn't think that it would work until the end, so we had to finish everything properly. Tan did not understand what our protagonist was talking about, so our main character only looked at the participants' scoreboard and said that after so much time, his old opponent appeared, that in fact, most likely her skills improved. The third stage and the final of fights on bamboo sticks began. Casillas waited for this moment for an incredibly long time while our protagonist was already going to fight. Of course we said that it wasn't like him, but Dex was very impressed with me. He understood that he probably shouldn't even change the summon to another one suitable for PvP. Tan already chose good options, but our main character only said that he was this time she will refuse, because he has already planned something in advance. He immediately asked the angel to provide him with power. The angel, not expecting to be approached, was very happy. She said that all the heavenly beings were willing to put aside their power. Our character, in his right mind, apologized to her, but that he ignored her during all the fights on bamboo sticks. It's his fault that his ability is not enough, so he asked the river god to provide him with a master of all weapons. Now Calypso, the celestial being, was in the player's body. Now our protagonist could only use its power. His skills were 100. That he was the king of all weapons. It was an intangible weapon created with purely magical power, which is freely changed at the will of the user. All this was quite interesting. So at the same time our protagonist tried to create several copies of weapons that could help him in bits. He created, for example, a shield, a dagger, and a bow. The demon was shocked by such an incredible use of magic power. The angel also understood that the owner of this power would not be able to change weapons so quickly. Apparently our main character was just talented. So our main character had no choice but to say that we can start, because he practiced and the instinct skill was activated. The winner, the fighter's eye skill, found a worthy opponent, or rather Casillas, who was clearly waiting for. She barely had time to react to that. She was glad that the one she had been waiting for so long finally appeared. But our main character asked him if she was running around too much, because it was obvious from her that she came from a collective farm game that was closed because there were no players, so he asked her to show her hidden eye. Casillas, clearly angry at him, started throwing her weapon. She was clearly not happy with all this. She lost her temper. But our main character, looking at her skills, understood that changing weapons with incredible speed. So when you see something close up that looked like magic, both skills of our heroes were similar to each other, because now our character can do something similar. Casillas, who was also a spectator of our protagonist's skills, was surprised, and immediately in front of her, our main character was able to change weapons, or rather change them. Is this really a hidden class? The battle was much fiercer now. It was an unbalanced combo attack. Just like her, but did the purposely make the same skill for himself? Dex threw the girl right into one building, said that it would be very awkward if this time she lost again. He asked her to try her best. Obviously the girl had to prepare for the worst. The moment of battle continued, both opponents changing their weapons at an incredible speed, changing their shape, using many different skills to surprise each other. But Casillas clearly wasn't happy with our protagonist trying to do the same thing. She thought it was all unfair. What and so on. What now? While she sat and played her favorite game, I think Quick Pick is literally a skill that allows you to quickly change and put on items of equipment. However, the weapon of the person in front of him just picked up and transformed. She couldn't even keep up with him using quick picks. She thought that she definitely had to win the point. But as soon as the battle went on a little more, it was clearly clear that it was a little sad, because our character was ahead of her in terms of his capabilities. He said that he expected much more from her. Standing right in front of her, the girl wanted to win as quickly as possible. I didn't want to lose once again. It was clear that her pride was at stake, and she looked at our character and asked him, because he also has a skill at all. But Dex, I said that if she means master of all weapons, but most likely this skill is very useful. Casillas, having obtained such a powerful skill that would be useful to him in the future and in the battle with her. I started laughing, and he said that luck is a kind of skill, so I should be so surprised. Casillas, he thinks so, it's now confusing her every time, so she's also now using all her skills, will do her best. She hit her bamboo stick directly into the ground, and then moved her hand forward, from where she got a blue glow. She started talking about how I thought it was impossible to fight him with a weapon I wasn't used to, no matter how powerful the weapon was, but if it was possible for me to fight, it was useless. She thought about it all the time as she continued to train, as she continued to kill her opponents who got in her way. Our main character, looking at her with a slightly drowned look, said that if you throw the bamboo to the side, then there is most likely something else, so the girl paused for a while, that before she strikes with a bamboo stick, she will completely destroy it using all her strength, as well as her sword. The girl's eye that was standing in the country began to glow. She took the scabbard of her sword, and then began to take it out little by little. The sword was the same bright shade of blue, but did she have some antiques in her hands? Why didn't it look dangerous? Of course, our player also wanted to look at the weapon that is worth fighting, but it was already too late because the girl made one attack after a millisecond. This attack immediately hit the throat of our main character, but did not kill him based on the characteristics of this competition. Cassilia, having done this blow, was incredibly focused. She didn't say a single word to me as the saint did before. Critical damage was inflicted. There was a fracture to bring up bleeding, otherwise the healing of movement will be limited. Our character, who grabbed him by the throat and then fell to the floor, realized that it was still so fast that even he could not have expected such speed. Tan as well as Ellie were completely shocked, asking if everything was alright, but only Angel noticed that this sword was very familiar to her. Casillas, she continued her attacks right at our main character, who used these defenses, used the skill. So even if he uses a shield, the next one will also be blocked, or did the person in front decide to resist me? Of course, although it's sad, but it's true, and all our protocos could do now was block attacks with his skill, but he knew for sure that it wasn't his fault. Because the opponent in front of him had become faster since she pulled the ball out, he knew that it was exactly what was happening in it, so after a bit of hesitation, getting up from the ground, he decided to do right in front of him what the celestial being asked the player to do in the dialogue. It was all very strange, because now it was really a tense moment, but now the angel understood what was going on. She went to her master and asked him to look at that ancient sword that was in the girl's hand. At first, she thought that this item was a bit strange, but she knows something about it. She said that she had a message from the master of all weapons, whose being is the main character. He said that originally this ball belonged to him. He prepared it for his successor, who was to continue his work. She explained that this is not all, that it is a skill. She said that in addition to this sword, which grants a class increase, there is also iron, which transfers skills and as the user becomes stronger. But now the owner of this ball does not feel the traces of this necklace at all, so therefore he is unpleasantly angry. He was raised that something is wrong, so the situation is that the well of this ball is simply closed. The angel was a little embarrassed by this suggestion, because it was clear that Casillas most likely has the skills of a celestial being. So now it was clear that she not only has abilities similar to them, but they are exactly the skills that are inherent only in celestial beings, but rather the master of all weapons of Calypso. Casillas, noticing this, thought that in fact the atmosphere had suddenly changed, but the protagonist, who was looking at it all from the side with an expression on his face, now realized that he could not get a word in, that now he would only feel sorry for one person, or rather Casillas herself. At the same time, looking at the girl, he asked her about the ball, because did she get it after completing the quest? Casillas didn't know what the question was about, if she was trying to stall for time or something. But our character only asked her to answer his question, because if she wants to finish so quickly, then she also needs to answer quickly. He repeated his question about the sword again. The girl, having returned to her stance, rested a little herself, replied that everything was exactly like that, because she received this sword after completing a quest from a strange tramp. But if there is any problem from this situation, did she really do something wrong, or did he want to tell her something about this sword? The master of all weapons, Calypso, he couldn't help but ask about the necklace that came with the sword. Our main characters, I'm a little worried myself, because I knew that most likely something would happen right now. I asked, because besides the ball, was there no necklace? The girl was shocked, because how did he know about this? They definitely did not meet even earlier. How did someone find out about what she did at the very beginning of her journey? Of course, it was not important, so our character, that he is only interested in the presence of this necklace, is it now with the girl? Casillas, who squeezed it a little, as if answering without any feeling at all, said that it was true that in addition to the sword and got from the tramp also necklaces, but in contrast it was an unidentified object, so she did not consider it necessary. Warbler's owner in the village, she was then and said that he didn't have the skills to test similar items, and that she should buy for the stage not to test his features. Our main character, who clearly began to understand what really happened, only began to worry even more. He asked with a trembling voice, "What happened?" He just asked God that all his guesses were not true. But Casillas didn't need to spend so much money to buy a scroll for the assessment, so in any case, it was a relay that couldn't attract even in its class. She just spent together with other items in the same shop, in the same village. She even told how much she got for it. She got about 15 bronze coins, thinking about how the price was the same as your appearance. Now the master of all weapons was simply shocked, his eyes filled with anger, misunderstanding, disgust. He was furious that his successor sold out his legacy so that the whole voice declared that he was disowning this heiress. So many notifications and indignation were now from the master of all weapons that the notification just flooded the screen of our main character. So many alerts just hit our main character's head. What does the master of all weapons want to do anyway? But at the same time, the notification that appeared at the very end just hit our main character. He saw that the master of all weapons asks the player to temporarily completely let him into his body. Someone promised that after moving in, he will take on all the difficulties. He knew that if this person was fighting in his place now, he would be grateful, but if it was even possible, he asked the angel, because this was the first time in this situation. She replied that according to the rules this is impossible, but if the master of all weapons is fully prepared to bear the potential costs, then most likely the load will be huge. Is it worth it at all? Angel, hold your head, understood that everything was rather complicated. But if he was so determined, then first of all, if it concerns the relationship between the teacher and the heir, then it may be based on interference in another world. So in the name of Archangel Michael, Angel allowed the master of all weapons to interfere. At the same time, huge forces hit our main character, as if pouring into him over and over again. The girl was shocked, because it was an incredible power. Did that same have some abilities? The master of all weapons completely possessed the player's body, so now the entire body was taken under control. Temporarily limited independent play, the player switched to observer mode. Now for our main character, the master of all weapons spoke. I asked the girl for the front. In fact, she sold to the heat. He is very sorry that the heir could not understand the deep love of the teacher, who took his love so seriously as she published a little more petty to the greedy merchant. The girl didn't understand what the speech was based on either, but then looking ahead, she noticed that our protagonist, or rather the skill of weapons, began to use all his powers that he had used up to this point. It received burnout status, so it was clear that even the battle required time to rest, which was worth treating your physical condition carefully as much as possible, and also received fatal damage and attacked the ground without realizing what was happening. The ancient sword whose name is lost also reacted strangely. What was going on? Well, the master of all weapons only directly approached her. They say that quick choices is not just a skill that was created with the goal of quickly changing weapons. It is a passionate desire to own the entire existing world already, the power created by Potap to use the power to own any weapon. The girl, hearing all this, could not believe her words, and the protagonist, or rather the master of all weapons, said that this is power. This is the highest power that Tabi was able to get by following his teachings. Now the girl realized that this was not the same Dex that she knew before. The girl really couldn't understand who was in front of her, because she definitely understood that it wasn't our main character in front of her. She couldn't understand why her sword reacted to this person in the first place. But now the master of all weapons only looked at her with utter disdain, saying that the swords were very sad. He was sad because something had lost his pair here. Or rather the necklace. The girl didn't know what she was talking about, because the master of all weapons was talking about everything only in his mind. Master started to talk about how if they had eaten a little more time, then she wouldn't have been so reckless. She would have been able to find someone really worthwhile and make them their successors. But unfortunately, he didn't have the time for that. So he was only able to find such a worthless disciple who was now in front of him. At that point, he took off his hood, where only his glowing eyes were revealed, and said that he should be grateful that he had met a noble person who had lent him her body and was therefore able to meet his successor again now. Les began to tremble even more. Nameless sword, or rather his feelings became even sadder. He cried, trembled, stuck out at the same time on the ground. The master of all weapons, smiling a little, said that despite the fact that she is not smart and but is this idea devoid of common sense? Because in a sense, but it is fate that this sword fell into their hands. The only option that remained of them with it is something that the master of all weapons has now come up with. The girl who was looking at this with complete surprise couldn't understand if the person in front of her had just started talking with a sword. What was going on right now? I just closed my eyes and said that now I need to take care of the who is standing in front of him, while I turned to my old friend, that is, the nameless ball. The old nameless sword began to express dissatisfaction. but decided to understand the situation as best as possible, recognized the owner, found his name, now began to unlock hidden ability items, rating the item magic to unique, hidden quest received, in search of the lost necklace. The girl noticed that Les began to speak even more, and she began to feel the soul of the sword. Her hands trembled with the great power that now felt in her hand. She felt a deep longing determination, so she realized that now she understood the true meaning of the hidden class that she got. Having already exhaled and did not mad said it reminded him of old times now. A warning flashed on the screen, saying that the master made the weapon made the maximum allowable intervention, that now full control will be disabled. The sword master apologized because of this, that he had to meet such a bad student, but still thanks our protagonist for allowing him to witness such a great fusion of the master, also a student. Now control has been returned to the player and observer mode is disabled. Our main character, who now only looked at his main hand, understood what he was expecting, but this level of interference is simply unacceptable, all thanks to the master of all weapons. It was thanks to him that he saw something special, but as soon as he said this, the girl who was right in front of our protagonist already fell infuriating. There were some magical wounds all over her body. It was a death state buff, the entire body of a woman didn't have it, so she was holding on with her last strength. The larger our duct is without looking at it, the more poisonous it seems, but he still decided to wait for it a little, otherwise the chance for a conversation can no longer and will not fall out. As soon as the girl woke up, our main character asked her only one thing: did she really sell weapons? Is she really that? He clearly made it clear to her that at first glance it was clear that this was a hidden quest, rather than a completely modern RPG she didn't play. It's almost a cliche in the current era. All these words hit the girl's self-esteem. She listened to it all and did not utter a single word. And our protagonist continued to laugh as long as possible, saying that no one even thinks about selling the necklace that goes in the set using a sword. But the girl only replied that the game that she played before did not have such quests. All these words really annoyed our protagonist. He thought that this was a high school that would not give anyone anything new. In any case, it seems that this necklace is a very important item, so our main character advised her that when everything is over, you need to go to the owner of the store and ask to return it back. The woman, of course, that she has no choice, realized that she was going to do it anyway. But what kind of class does our main character have? Because why is the person who fought with her just now not him? She thought that as if someone had possessed him or something like that, the spirit. Well, you can't hear our channel. He said that it definitely looks like he has a class like hers, but he was very nervous because he understood that I was a little bit at the girl's incredible level. But he started to smile and say that now is the time to solve the last question while pointing at the bamboo stick. The girl, it is clear why he dodged or walked and smiled. She said that it will take her another 3 minutes to get out of the special death state, that the poison fog has already reached them, the signal of the end of fights, so it seems that the decision has already been made. They will not be able to fight again this time. It was as if two close people were saying goodbye at the border, so our character only replied that it was a pity that it ended like this, because it would be nice to fight properly next time. But the girl, with a still wide smile on her face, replied that he needed to wait a little longer, and next time, in the next meeting, she will definitely be able to come out the winner. She is the main characters. Held a stick in his hand, said that this was to be expected. He even feels that he should give up, and then immediately pierced his opponent with a stick. Flashed an alert that our character finally managed to win a match with the last player, while saying that he would like to meet her again in the future. Now she finally announced the last, final winner. Our main character, on his head appeared a crown. All the main battles and bamboo stick fights were broadcast in real time. Numerous candidates were taken out to win. The highest rated Star Witch, Stavilla Wheelbarrow Revolutionary Stick Group called for equality to the entire community, and the girl who fought against our main character at the very end, who showed the game and lasted until the third round, was suddenly defeated. A new player named Dex appeared, whose victory seems to be enough. But the reaction of users was different. Absolutely all users just blew up the internet, saying that they believed in our main character from the very beginning, that they were crying because the girl took second place. The same nickname that hit all the players began to give publicity to absolutely the entire community. The people who flocked to the monitors only thought that he was rumored to be their opponent, which they are only now beginning to understand. In front of us was a black dragon of darkness, whose real age was 24 years. She was a girl. Why at her computer and realized that it was in the bamboo stick fights that she did not participate. She almost met a person with whom I would never want to meet again. The receptionist, who appeared right above our main character, started laughing as she took a huge baton in her hands. She was thinking that now was the time to present the prize they had promised so much. Immediately, a certain box called the mysterious box appeared. It was a very ordinary box that the description stated that it was created by a mysterious force. There would be an item that a person dreams of. In fact, it was, because the administrator said that there are a lot of people there that he defeated. The administrator will choose one of them specifically for our protagonist, so I asked him to choose the best possible item so that I wouldn't regret it later. Of course, there was a huge list, a lot of items were unique, the administrator understood that even from one-end text if and so on, but our character, that there were only crappy items in front of him. The difficulty of finding such items is not even 10,000, most likely there is not even anything normal here, but at that moment, I realized one thing. He turned to the administrator and asked if it didn't matter what the item was, as long as it was the items of the defeated users. I asked the administrator if it was like that, then most likely he decided. But as soon as she looked at the item that our protagonist chose, she was very surprised. She said that it was a bit strange and all that, but our main character only told me that it was the subject of a warned player. While smiling, they say that the administrator promised her. The people who were watching our main character's item selection couldn't believe that the receptionist who was smug from the beginning is now crying. Why does she look so worried? But the receptionist at that moment immediately agreed to meet the conditions of our main character, handing him a bamboo stick. Our protagonist was incredibly happy, and this is exactly what he wanted from the very beginning. People, or rather, the CEO, who looked at it all, was incredibly shocked by the choice. We see the Korean branch of Arcadia in front of us, many of them gathered at the same meeting. The CEO asked for everyone's attention, and also thanked everyone for participating in this emergency meeting despite their busy schedule, so first of all, he asked them to listen to what he had to say. He wanted to tell them about the bamboo stick fights that they had worked so hard to prepare for had come to an end a couple of hours ago, so as you can see from the monitoring, but the problem occurred in the process of issuing the reward. Of course, the girl immediately raised her hand. She said that I went and could not conduct monitoring because of overtime, but how serious is the problem? Many CEOs just drowned their eyes and told the winner to choose an item as a reward that they didn't even expect. So at the same time they said that it was much easier to see than to explain. They showed on the screen the very item that the player chose, or rather bamboo decline. All the people that were sitting in the office at this moment, they didn't have a word. That's why the CEO was personally at the briefing. Of course, the biggest problem was the special feature of the bamboo stick. The statement of instant death of this main problem is that the specific purpose is not different. This applies not only to bosses in high difficulty raids, but also to targets that are currently considered invulnerable. The general manager said that this is true, so if our hero uses this weapon to attack invulnerable creatures, like Arcadia, the Dragon Lord, that target will probably die instantly. They all knew that it wasn't 100% confirmed yet, but given the Arcadia code system, it was quite likely. Immediately, there was a mutiny in the hall. They still couldn't believe it, if he didn't even come to the Dragon King. But just an important NPC, then the whole main scenario would just collapse should they quit now. Many CEOs only said that he actually made a mistake, because I couldn't prevent it, despite the monitor, well, whatever it was. To avert the worst you can require intervention. Now the head of the company herself appeared, who said that now you will have to contact Alice again. Alice got in touch at the same time. Thank you, so what do you want from her? But the girl only said that she had a request related to the event of mutual letters of sticks. The point was that they would like to prevent the choice of an item. But Alice only said, while looking at all possible options, that this action is impossible. The director asked why not. But Alice said that the user who received the item already had 2 unsubstantiated patches applied, was promised that no additional patches would be applied to it, and was provided with proof information. At the same time, the CEO swallowed his saliva while feeling guilty. A video was shown where the CEO himself promised that this was the last patch that was related to this point. The CEO, who clearly did not want to get angry at all, said it seemed. But she asked him to avoid her interference as much as possible, going beyond the scope of authority. It seems he needs to explain himself. I got on pins and needles. He also started making excuses, saying that it was our protagonist who was to blame for everything. But it was too late, because we are again transported to our main character, who can finally swing his bamboo stick. The vampire who was flying around didn't understand why he got goosebumps from this item, but our protagonist didn't understand what he was talking about, because didn't he also see it during all the fights? But vampire, I told you that using this item next to them, or in this dimension, there, is a completely different thing. Ankle also said that the vampire had spoken correctly, that the moment he was transported to this dimension, he had a huge opportunity, enough to turn an entire continent upside down in one swing. Incredible power. Our character, who was holding a bamboo stick, only said that it was the right decision to choose it as a reward, but at the same time the administrator asked the player to contact him. But does our protagonist want to answer this call himself? Of course, it was very interesting, even curious, so that the answer to the challenge was not waiting for anyone. Now the use of all skills was limited. The latter would now be moved to a separate space. There was the administrator Arcadia, who introduced Helenia. She was more like a fire elf who hoped to be understood, since she requested this challenge due to the results of the bamboo stick fights he received. Our protagonist immediately asked to get straight to the point. Why was he called? He understood that the admin customization was done in the elven race. This may not be an available option yet. Admin means admin. But the administrator only began to say that everyone already knows that for talking about fighting on bamboo sticks, that the item that I chose here is very special and it was not intended as a reward for the point. And if it is used in Arcadia, it can have a significant impact on its course and cause serious damage to the game, so which is why it was decided that adjustments to this item were necessary. Our protagonist asked if this meant that they would take away the item he received as a reward. But when the receptionist said no, because the gentleman standing right in front of her got this spear in a private way. So this is a mistake of the administration, so they plan to get his consent first, and then send a request for adjustments. Does he even want to hear the terms? Now the management has put forward 3 plans. The first is to limit the number of times the bamboo stick is used. The second is to limit the scope of the bamboo stick, and the third is to laser the side stick and replace it with the appropriate item. It was a risky decision, recognizing the danger of bamboos and sticks from a pre-solved problem. In other words, it was a decision that only the president could make. Of course, our character understood that there was no plan that he liked, so they thought through the measures well, but he decided to say that he understood the basic meaning. But what will he get if he agrees to the adjustment? The administrator, who understood the meaning of the game and his style of our main character, said, or rather thought that he would immediately come in and take an aggressive position, but it turned out to be much calmer than expected. She said that this will be solved by the user reward program, which is controlled by artificial intelligence. So simply put, this is an algorithm similar to the same administrator during stick fights. Since this happened due to the fault of their company, he will be provided with appropriate compensation. Does he want to check it at least once? At the same time, a strange notification appeared right in front of our main character's face. But will they really give him such a compensation? The admin team just said that they don't have the right to review the user's compensation, but that's exactly what it is. They are at Arcadia, who responsibly promises to pay compensation, and perhaps this is a personal decision, but there is something else. Our main character became interested, and the administrator approached directly to his face with the words that if he contributes to them in this matter, then their management will never harm him again. They promise not to apply additional and justified patches to him. What does our main character think about this? This personal decision clearly piqued the interest of our protagonists, but was it enough for the administrator to accept it? The receptionist replied with confidence in her eyes that it was just like that she was promising it on her own behalf as the CEO of Arcadia's Korean branch. After hearing this, was this really the real CEO in front of him? But the receptionist just turned around and said that he was grateful that she was listened to, and then said that they will meet again, put our main character in confusion. The administrator only asked to work together in the future, because this will definitely be a good excuse for them to continue their relationship. By that time, a lot of people on the street gathered for the virtual reality exhibition. There was a stand of Arcadia, where the woman standing next to her was sure that most of the audience was interested in the product, that this device is very similar to the old Arcadia connection device. But this system has a virtual reality integration called Sweet Dreams, so it will tell you why it was created. When they upload Sweet Dreams and present the appropriate picture, a unique program considers the image, embodies its graphic applications and programming. So in simple terms, this is a fantastic device that can create a whole world with just its imagination. They invite everyone to test it at this fair. Of course, after trying it, our main character realized that it was a little more difficult than he thought, and the picture was so bad that he thought that his vision had deteriorated. Our protagonist decided to go as far away from this place as possible, because he wants to sleep, but then he started hearing that people started talking behind him, saying that many people started using more than 10 minutes. The main character, who was clearly having fun instead of our excuse. It happened at the bamboo stick fights. Our main character, despite the interest of his friend, only told him that he would not tell anything. But in case we accept that at that time a bilateral agreement was reached regarding the adjustment of the item, so that the bamboo stick item was changed to an item that can only be used once, 1 million decency will be received as a reward. Now our main character is granted full immunity for the patch applied to him, as well as 10.000 gold secret message, which said that the chief executive should be contacted if there were difficulties. There were her numbers. A few weeks passed. Some people were called to an emergency meeting. There was a man sitting there whose face was not visible. He greeted all the people who were gathered in this room, his team. He said that they were all waiting for one moment with impatience, that Dex finally showed up. He asked all the people to gather in Arcadia. At this moment, Arcadia has warmer days. Many people enjoyed the aura, the atmosphere that they could decide under the sun, and also discussed all the fights on bamboo sticks. We could not win, but we would also choose bamboo hit, which now seemed to be our main character, who actually now has a lot of problems due to the fact that because of that famous stream now a lot of people recognize this on the street. He tried to go unnoticed, and because of the stream everything. Now all eyes will be drawn on him, so I decided to disappear as quickly as possible. He called a celestial being who would help him escape and immediately disappear. He got into the forest, where he was caught by a vampire. I asked, because why is his master so worried? But he, as the main character, only replied that he was looking for a place, somewhere extra eyes, which his henchmen did not understand. Maybe they thought that many people want to enjoy fame and so on. An angel who was flying nearby asked why she feels the fear that comes from our main character. Our gas mask only said that he should be afraid, because he has been hiding for years from the crazy stalkers who are chasing him. An angel, also a demon, asked what kind of stalker is this. But at that moment, they realized that they were talking about those people who came to Arcadia, who started looking for a person named Dex. They didn't approach every person on the street and ask if they were Dex or not. A lot of problems were not delivered to people who were on the street. But the girl who was helping her friend said that she heard from the very crazy fans who are chasing our main character. It's the infamous new guild called What Color Are Dex's Panties. Now the vampires finally understood what his master was talking about, that it was also very hard for the master. The angel didn't understand what she was talking about, so the demon only said that a freak like her with chicken wings wouldn't understand if someone was outstanding enough to attract the attention of society, then they would follow him to the point of exhaustion. Or maybe she realized we were talking about fanatics, so she asked the flying mouse to help her. Both insults were taken very seriously, so there was a conflict between yours. Our protagonist, who finally exhaled, said that all this annoys him, saying that those very fanatics are freaks who, in his experience, continue to follow him even if he kills them. But what do we do now? But the demon only thought that this was actually true, because he was also in such a situation, because after becoming a devil, there were quarrels, so him to take his share. Of course, he solved the problem by killing everyone, but he didn't expect that this problem would also be solved easily in the future, so he spent a lot of time creating one item called the Trickster Mask, which had a mythological level. This mask was sewn from the skin of the high level where we are, to hide the true self and show others just what it wants. Our protagonist asked him if all this wasn't created for combat, such a simple thing, in a room of physical quality. Shout, say that this mask is much more valuable than it looks. Do you know how much high level where we have slaughtered for the sake of its manufacture? Earthman couldn't say anything, but he could guarantee that this mask was a powerful power. No amount of power or skill would be able to penetrate it and cover up the real person. So in short, only if he didn't want to, then no one would be able to reveal him. The demon said that he could borrow this mask if he wanted to. Our character, looking at this mask, immediately turned to the Daebut and asked how many points he wants. The same is not going to demand decency, current because it is an item mythical rank. The demon immediately started making excuses saying that there would be a lot more problems, that he was only asking for 100,000 points. Our protagonist knew that S was fine, it was quite a huge amount, but there was nothing to do, because he already received 1,000,000 decency for fighting on bamboo sticks, and this mask seems to be best suited to avoid those people who are chasing him. At the same time, the mythical item was power deception and disguise shrouded the player's body. Now the player's identity is hidden. The same stalkers that were in the city said that they searched the whole city, the inn, but their goal is not there in the gun shop. But the man who was at the head, basically a bully, just started cheering on all the people. They say that he could not have gone so far because they received a message that he was there 30 minutes ago. Of course, the witch and so on thought that Tom couldn't really escape them, but where was their goal? By the time the main character finally appeared in the square, his hair had taken on a white hue and his eyes were starting to shift just like a demon's. He thought that this thing was actually useful, and demons boasted that he wasn't actually lying about it. Now our protagonist could watch the market situation, walk among people. Previously, it could not track information and gold prices. After looking at the table, Novastam noticed that the most record-breaking item that was bought was only 1 billion, but the mask that he just bought was worth about 10 billion, which was a huge amount. As soon as our main character went a little further, he met with his stalkers. They started looking us right in the eye. But after a little thought, they thought that this was a completely different guy, that it just couldn't be compared to their goal. Our character, who was quite happy with this masked action, admitted that it was actually very useful, and the demon only replied that it was actually so. But who is the masked beauty anyway? The demon immediately replied that it was the face of a vampire named Rod, who opposed him and killed him. Looking at those red eyes, you remember that he had a pale complexion and it was different from him, just perfect. Of course, our main character, yes, he is a patent that his self-consciousness is too much, But who was this person? It was these words that were constantly heard behind our main character, so he clearly made it clear that with such a face, he would get tired of the point where we did not understand what the problem was, because if I liked it there, then he could change the appearance as he wants. After looking at the functions of this mask, he noticed that it can disguise itself in a compartment that has already been killed, so this is actually an interesting item you need to play now while completing the mission. He actually knew that it was time for them to do something, but he also knew that he needed to go to his old friend's house. Now we can see Angelica again, who was next to Dex. She was very happy that there were no things from him after the fights ended. Our character apologized because he was just very busy with something. Angelica, still sulking at him, said she understood that she was facing a celebrity and all, but wasn't it too much to ignore her messages? However, at this point our character said that the reason he contacted her was because of the second-ranked Star Witch standing who was hunting her down to kill her. Seems like Tam was going to survive using the items he gave her, but that won't work because the magic fighting dude's controls that she demonstrated aren't comparable to surpassing her. Compared to the Star Witch, she's just a little kid and couldn't even get past her second round of bamboo stick fights. Angelica didn't understand the point of deviating, but did she just need to give up or something? But Dex just smiled, said that everything is simple because she needs the grimoire because of which she is chasing her, and in the meantime, develop your skills. For this he prepared the very woman who will now stand at a distance. It was Casilla's. She immediately ran up to Angelica and started asking questions. After all, is it really her who will have to train? Angelica, greetings to the girl, was generally excited. But our protagonist said that in fact it is Angelica who needs to be trained because her skills are not bad, but she still has not enough experience, so she wants Casilla's to train her. Casilla's asked if she did as he said, he would not forget his promise to arrange another meeting with her teacher. The protagonist also said that it is not necessary to worry about it right now because it is difficult, but one day it will definitely be possible. Angelica was still tense, but our main character only continued to joke about the girl. They say that she will not have enough courage for that meeting with the teacher. He immediately took her by the shoulders and said that he was just counting on her because he can only trust her, an expert in shitty games. Casilla's clearly wasn't thrilled with the compliment, but still said that she made the girl so that she wouldn't be so far behind that she would survive wherever she went. Angelica didn't understand, because really they were talking about her, but it was too late, because now two allies were leaving in the distance, right in the woods. Our main character was looking at the breaks. At first, he saw everyone's PvP, or rather Angelica, a madwoman who scores until they fly apart, and the story of her recovery began exactly like that. Now Casilla's is out of the team, but our booster is already on his way to Earth. He was reading his weird assignment where I talked about making connections, but one day he came to the bridge and was met by a guard. The guard obviously did not want to let go, asked for documents. Our character, so as not to cause even more problems, said that he was in the first section, so the guard immediately pointed out his feet, and in Russia, he needed documents. Who was standing right next to his shop greeted the sheep in the land. He said that if anyone, that is, they have several documents that he needs to sign, he should have taken a moment. She immediately started telling him lots and lots of things that would clearly cloud his mind, but she really started reading what he thought was written in the contract, where there was a pile of underground stones. But our character, I said that he had heard that they had been selected as one of the 10 most unfavorable for players for a while, so when he gave advice, it was better to cross the line. The guy didn't understand what was going on, but it was too late because our main character now asked to meet with his brother. Now we could see these very mansions in which the Baroness lived. There was a lot of money in front of her. She was glad that our main character came to her. As soon as he entered her room, he asked her what was so interesting and did not do, while looking at all the gold that was on the table. But the Baroness just pointed her finger up and said that now there are too few people coming here to look for adventures, although this is not enough, but she would try as much as she could to harness even the most inexperienced. The number of people available for the mine, or rather just money cows, that now they are difficult to find. Our protagonist, I understand, that created a terrible monster, said that if they use their adventures like this, it might get around them. This kingdom has also fallen into the hands of an adventure seeker named the Black Flame Dragon. Is this worth considering? But she said about us that you shouldn't worry, that's the natural order of the world, and besides, she offers you a large amount of gold, because isn't that the most important thing? And in general, by the decree of the ruler, she was asked to provide support. Everything works exactly like that. Of course, it seemed to our character that in front of him was actually some kind of distraught woman, so that Inessa was simply scarier than he thought, but at the same time, the profit that he had received up to this point was brought to his ward. 734 gold coins were received, as well as several silver and bronze coins. It seemed like an incredible amount of money. From 10 gold to 700 in 3 months, it's just unimaginable. But the Baroness went on to say that there are such things as inviting high-level masters to their lands, arranging routes, and so on. So many things that she would like to consult about now, but first you need to listen to the reason why he came here. She said that she would do whatever they asked her to do. But our main character, I told you that there is a person with whom he would like to meet. By that time, he was taken to one of the mines called Peony. He said that if they were newbies, they wouldn't work as well as the rest of them. But our protagonist was only looking for one person who had the same badge as the rest of the allies. This guy had a speed much faster than everyone else, so she expected the hero to ask around, damn, just who is this guy? The goblin also replied that the first switch seeker that I am now honored to be working at their mine stopped to run to other lands. But they mostly caught him, and for his act they are squeezing the maximum out of him. Of course, now it was obvious that this person had a loot of rank 5 or even higher. So he asked the goblin to allow a conversation with him. Number 1 immediately looked to the side and saw that she was the main character calling him. He went to the manager. And our hero thought that he can't work anymore, he did all the work this week, that he will be scolded, but our main character only asked to talk to him. Rap number 1 asked who was standing in front of him, but our main character only replied that he was the one who would give him freedom. Now number 1 has told his story, said that he escaped, but was caught and now works here. Our protagonist asked him why, how he signed the contract, because he should have noticed when he read it. The person only replied that he just signed it all without counting, and also said that he was only 15 years old. When the protagonist hit himself on the head, he realized that he actually needed helpers. But the angel who was now next to our protagonist ran up to him and whispered in his ear, saying that the smell of fire emanates from the boy, which also comes from the spirits of fire or those who are closely associated with the properties. Usually, such people had innate fine blacksmithing. She hadn't seen such people in a long time. Our protagonist asked the boy if he was willing to do anything if he was released. The boy also said yes, again without listening to any conditions. He immediately fell to his knees and began to say that if he was released, he would serve faithfully, but they just begged to take him with them. He said that he no longer wanted to mine iron, but at the same moment the contract of the player Shakai was broken, the chains from the boy flew off. Now it was possible to test his skills, but once the skills were reviewed, there was something that clearly aroused interest, or rather the inscription that this is the oldest fire seeker, the first beta tester. Arcadia, of course, was developed with great secrecy right up to the release itself, so if our protagonist actually closed beta versions of such a game, then it was quite strange. Even the main character asked him, but who is he anyway? The boy immediately began to talk, but then hung his head and said that this game was given to him by a friend. Anyway, our protagonist didn't believe him, so the boy decided to tell him that it's not like that, because he has one very smart friend, but it's a secret, so he can't really talk about it. Dex, while exhaling that judging by the way he shakes, it seems that they are lying, and then said that you can end this conversation with this, so I asked him if he would like to take one test. This test was to get this boy to fight. He has killed a kobold with his own hands alone, thought it was actually cool. In fact, he said it was cool because he was on the verge of death. But in reality, he thought that combat skills were no good and crafting skills were also very bad. Crafting here is known for its difficulty, so no one is 100% good at it. But it's still a shame that it's been here since the closed beta tests, it's still at this level. Why does he have to be his assistant? Is this really some kind of punishment? However, the angel who was flying nearby said that there was no need to think like that, because do they really think that blacksmiths only need the blacksmith skill or something like that? A blacksmith needs not only his talents and abilities, but also creative abilities to put his spirit into creating a tool. However, in her opinion, this is not the most important quality of a blacksmith, yet standing in front of a furnace that burns with the heat of fire, hitting metal heavily with a hammer. Most of all, they need perseverance to never give up, and after hundreds, 1,000 hammer blows with unbending willpower, a weapon with great power is born. This is how a blacksmith should work. The child who was standing right in front of him coped with a difficult situation and did not give up, so the angel feels that he has more potential than anyone else. Our protagonist asked, after all, where Ellie is so well informed as one of them sack, or rather, why does she generally rate guys so highly? Ellie said that it was all difficult to explain, but then said that unlike the rest, if such information was leaked, it could have a big impact on the entire continent. Earlier, during the intervention of the weapon master, Tut acted against decency and the heavens took the knife on themselves, but if this happens again, then it will disrupt the order of heaven instead of setting an example like an angel. Our character realized that, to put it another way, if she has enough decency, she can identify information that she doesn't dare share right now. Ellie said that this is all true, but it was too late, because our character said that he will pay his decency all the way she wants, because information that can have a big impact on the cabinet, and it is clearly worth the money. He has such a temper that he can't stand it when he's burning with curiosity. At the same time, we had 150,000 decency. There was a disclosure of the secrets of the past, the reproduction of the memories of Archangel Michael, the point set when the first holy war of demons was called the era and the mythical era, In this era there were gods who had various powers of power. God of hunting, music, war, justice, time, and so on. There were an infinite number of gods and cults that worshipped them. However, one of them erased the era, destroying all people's memories of it. Our main character realized that it turns out that one sect erased all the others, declared that their god is the only one, and this crazy sect is just the Holy Empire. It also turns out that the Holy Empire that glorifies justice is the descendants of those who drenched the continent in blood, so if this fact becomes known, the continent will plunge into chaos again. That's why the heavens hide it. The angel in his eyes refused that this is actually the case, that after this incident did not right Steel stronger, but it wasn't worth it to the other points anyway. They lost all the followers turned into gods. What exactly no one remembers. The moment came, our hero realized that the skills that were indicated in the boy were most likely to be eliminated to one of the gods, and the angel said that the one who first lit up the darkness was just the father of all blacksmiths, Vulcanus. It is he who looks after this child to be in the mine. This was the reason why I shouldn't have made the boy my assistant, helped him grow and develop. But he wasn't even a forge master, and Ellie, who was next to him, asked if he should take the boy to the dwarves. Our main character asked about this plan, because does Tam know that to date, players have not discovered the existence of other species at all? How can he take it to them if they do not know where they are? Angel said that she also doesn't know, but at the same moment Tan appeared, who said who knows about this. He said that the courtyard's live underground. These guys went underground and met with his subordinates there. Our character asked him where all this is, but Tan only said, he said that it was far away, that you need to fly for about 5 days. This huge distance meant that it was one of the 5 restricted areas where one could die from the environment debuff, the Great Desert. Tan, as well as Angel, clearly expressed their desire to get to that place. Our character also decided that they should go there. After a while, the Great Desert opened up before us, which the person has already lived. Our heroes, he said that even the inhabitants of the desert clans cannot go to that place because then it's full of dangerous monsters, because our main character stepped on the field. As soon as you know about the end made your first move, you notice that the boy right behind him was full of determination, because he was grateful that he was given such good items. Dex asked him not to worry, because it was not difficult for him to buy these items, and everything was in order, because why return the used items? You had to keep them for yourself as payment for the fact that he worked in the mine for so long. The boy was so happy that he promised himself that he would follow the man in front of him to the very end. But Dex was clearly confused. Now our heroes were in the desert. Because of the heat, their stamina consumption was increased, they ran out of strength, and they needed to rest. The boy was already exhausted, and our protagonist tried to support him, because he could not understand how his strength could run out so quickly. The boy continued to praise his main character in this story, but our protagonist understood that he just had one of the skills called Cold Enchantress, that he had resistance to heat, so he told the boy that he might also have this in the future. Of course, 2 people had already been wandering in the desert for 3 days. They would have to give up, because they thought that they would not find anything. The boy believed that the information was unreliable. But she's the protagonist. Speeding up her step said that you shouldn't worry, in the form of information 100% accurate, and instead they are all nonsense, it's better to speed up. Tan, who was resting in the air, began to clear some approaching creatures. At the same time 2 scorpions with a level of 160 appeared. Our protagonist outside the window spell was immediately able to freeze the scorpions, and then immediately deal with them. The boy dealt with the scorpions with a single blow of a pickaxe. They broke into many parts and then acquired a title called Raw Freelancer. Of course, this title was incredibly strange because first of all he had, and now also a freelancer. The boy was hurt by all this, but then Dex asked him what is his level. The boy replied that he was 72, that he had increased from 24 in 3 days. In fact, it was probably a legal tank, looked at him and said with a gloomy face that he should just follow him. F in vain. The boy knew all the way that they had only to hope that now there would be at least some clues, because he had spent a lot of decency trying to keep up the spirit. Tan, who understood everything, immediately approached our main character, saying that he had one suggestion. He thought that one of the dwarves, who is known among the inhabitants of demons, could help him, that he had golden hands. He invented the infernal forge who made weapons using hellfire. He's not the type who deals with demons, but he's really well known among the courts. Our protagonist was interested, then asked about this dwarf, but the demon only asked for one favor. He said that he was very interested to know how he is, because he is tied to our main character all day, and as a familiar it is very difficult to do this. The angel was also in such a state, so our main character said that there was no reason for him to refuse this. Immediately the very court that took possession of the body of our main character was called. He clearly began to feel the same feeling that he felt when he was alive. He was only asked to put aside the conversation and go in search of the place they wanted to find. The dwarf immediately apologized and then started prowling around constantly. He looked down at his feet and said that the earth is right under the bottom, right under the feet of our character, and that's the point. No one believed in it, but Dvorov, with his equipment right to the sand, said that he feels that very energy right from the ground, that this is a certain energy of the Forge of Sands, the last the dwarven ark he'd sacrificed himself to protect. But what do you need to do now to get there? The dwarf said that he didn't understand what he was talking about, and why use such a clumsy method, because there is an even easier one. Our main character understood what he was talking about, so he asked the boy to move as far away as possible, then immediately took the hammer in his hands. He swung, ignoring the boy's screams, and then hit the ground with the same one. All the sand began to crack, and our main characters rushed straight down, while at the very bottom I saw a dot light, which also flew at the very top, saying that he had a feeling of nostalgia, that now he could look at this city again. But Dex, who had seen this city for the first time, realized that this was the Forge of the Sands, the very place they had talked about earlier. Discovered an unknown area, obtained a legendary achievement, first discovered the last dwarven city, had to report your kingdom achievement to get a huge reward. Obtained a title, relentless investigator, health and other stats have been upgraded, now there is a new quest, meet the Orf. Many of the dwarves that were right inside took out their weapons, saying that an outsider had made their way to them, and then our hero realized that the new task would actually be difficult.